Hi, and welcome back. And in case you guys don't know me, I am Shubrotham and I teach yoga. So, in today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys about the three fundamental types of meditation. So, a lot of you guys are aware of how to meditate. A lot of you guys have heard how you can meditate by listening to music, through chakra meditation, and all of these things, Kundalini meditation. But in this video, I'm here to tell you guys about three specific types of meditation that's derived from the ancient texts, from ancient Indian yogic texts, okay? The Shiv Samhita, the Gheranda Samhita, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, I'm sorry. So if you guys want an authentic and detailed version of what meditation actually means in a yogic context, here I am to explain it to you guys. So, what are these three fundamental types of meditation? So I'm just going to get a bit academic on this, so bear with me. The first type of meditation is the meditation where you observe your thoughts and you remain as what we call witness consciousness. In most ashrams around the world, this is the first type of meditation that is taught to students. They're taught to simply observe their thoughts and not do anything. The whole point of this practice is to separate your true self from the things that are not really part of you. For example, they tell you to listen to the sound of something that's outside or to the sound of a clock. And this is done to enhance your ability to concentrate, okay? When you do this in what's also commonly called Shanmukhi Mudra, where you're able to internalize these sounds by concentrating on the outside and slowly realizing that the source of all the noise is actually from the inside, okay? That's when you realize that you actually possess these organs of sense and these organs of perception that you are in control of. So you control your internal reality, which to a certain extent affects the way you perceive external reality. So when you're able to do this, you end up in a way controlling situations and making it a lot better for yourself. If you have to study for an exam, if you have to go for a job interview, or just in general, if you want to lead a life that is that is peaceful in nature, regardless of the tumultuous and chaotic circumstances of the world, you can do so by living in a more tranquilized and in a more harmonious state of consciousness. When you have mastered this first technique of meditation, you slowly learn how to develop what's called witness consciousness, where you see things as a cause and therefore having an effect. You don't at any point equate yourself as having to do or be part of anything that's happening in the grand scheme of things. What I'm trying to say is that you don't elevate your ego to the point where you think everything revolves around you. In other words, you start to realize that your ego is a very minuscule part of your existence, that your ego in effect is very sort of like witness type. It is there to help you gain knowledge. It is not there for you to go after things that can just never be. It could be anything in that sense. Many great demons in the past have had massive egos, okay? But I'm not going to get too technical and too confounding at this point. So the first way of meditating is to separate your ego consciousness, okay? And resign yourself to just being an observer. By being an observer, you're able to observe phenomena from a very tranquil and a very peaceful state of mind. And this is a very powerful technique, because by doing this, you can face any kind of situation with calm. You gain strength, mental strength, nervous strength, physical strength. This actually happens. If someone pinches you or if you get hit, you learn not to react. You simply witness that event and you observe, and you find that you in fact are indestructible at the end of the day. Your true essence is indestructible, and that's the whole point of this meditation. This meditation allows you to recognize that deep inner consciousness that is not born and that does not die. So this very simple form of meditation, even though it's so simple as just witnessing things around you and not reacting, is actually quite difficult. Because how many times have we been in situations where, regardless of trying so hard, regardless of trying to pull back and restrain, we react? So this meditation teaches you not to react where you don't need to. It teaches you to conserve energy for better things in your life. That's method number one. Method number two involves a certain knowingness, a certain ability for you to understand yogic philosophy. In this meditation, the practitioner is told to separate the two aspects of nature, which is the female and the male aspect. There was a sage by the name of Kapil, okay, who came up with the Samakya philosophy. It's an Indian philosophy, and it's one of the first Indian philosophies. I think it is the first Indian philosophy, if I'm correct. And in this, he divided existence as having two main or predominant aspects. One is the male aspect, and the other is the female aspect. The male aspect is what you call Purush, and the female aspect is what you call prakriti. Prakriti is nature, all right, Mother Nature, and Purush is the male, the father element. And these two together is what constitutes creation. Quite evidently enough, mother, father, child. Now, Purush and Prakriti, even though it seems very simple and crude, a logic, the logic is quite profound when you read it in a philosophical sense. If you have looked at my earlier videos, I talk about the properties of nature, and this is where the practitioner needs to be very knowledgeable. They need to have a knowledge of the properties of nature, which is the property of goodness, sattva, tamas, and rajas. Sattva, rajas, and tamas. And this has been talked about in detail in the Bhagavad Gita. Without this knowledge, it's very difficult to practice this second fundamental type of meditation. This second fundamental type of meditation is also what constitutes, to a certain extent, a type of yoga which is called Jnana Yoga, or yoga that is gained through knowledge or knowingness. When you know how the properties of nature function, you're able to control them. You're able to control the modifications of nature, and you remain in your own pristine and pure element as spirit, or Purush, okay? The first primordial element of creation. The whole point of this Purush and Prakriti type of yoga, the second type, is to pull you back to your true source. And for you to not get lost in the modifications of nature and cause your mind to get more and more multiplicated and divided. Because when your mind becomes multiplicated and divided, it causes confusion, unnecessary confusion. Your mind is not a whole, and that's always going to leave you at a disadvantage because you're no longer in control. You no longer realize that you, in fact, are the creator. Okay? It's a very profound and a very philosophical process of meditation. If you guys are looking for things like peace of mind and to go deep inside your spirit, well, first you need to know what your spirit is, and you need to know what is not your spirit. What is not your spirit is nature. Nature is part of spirit. And so when you discover nature, the modifications of nature, why am I feeling agitated today? Why do I feel like having salt food? And is this a good thing? Is the property of rajas predominant in me? Is the property of kineticism dominant in me? And how do I get to the point where I'm more in touch with my spirit? How do I do this? How do I do this by having more sattvic foods, or foods that promote sattva or lightness or goodness? Or how do I detach from the elements of nature? Or how do I detach from someone who's spoken to me badly today? This you find out when you understand the modifications of nature in depth. you understand your mental state of being. You understand which property of nature is dominant in you, and by knowing this, you know how to balance things out. You know, having a lot of inertia is not always a bad thing. Sometimes people are too agitated when they have a lot of rajas, a lot of kineticism, you know, a lot of ambition. It's not always a good thing. So they are made to go and become passive, to relax, to calm down. But unfortunately, this is an imbalanced state, because you end up becoming very slothful and lazy. So to rebalance it out, you introduce a little bit, or you sprinkle a bit of rajas. And when you do this, you get sattva. But even sattva is not enough to reach that final pristine state of the soul, that soul consciousness. In order to do this, you need to get all of these three properties of nature into one balance. It's like you're a yogic alchemist. You're basically practicing a type of spiritual alchemy when you think about it. It's a very profound process, and you can only practice it when you study the properties of nature in detail, and when you know what nature is and what spirit is. When you practice an asana, you will soon start to understand how to get more in touch with your true self rather than the body, by very virtue of practicing the asana. And that's one of the best ways to practice this second type of meditation, which is through asana and pranayama. Now, when we come to the third state of meditation, the third fundamental type of meditation, it's very difficult for most people, but it's more direct, it's more straightforward. This meditation takes you directly to what's called Nadivikalpa samadhi. For those of you who don't know what samadhi is, sama means equal, okay? Samadhi means to be in a state of equanimity, in a state that does not fluctuate. This samadhi has different types, okay? There is a nirvikalpa samadhi, so a samadhi which is without fluctuation, which there is nirbija samadhi which is without seed. It's very technical at this point, if you want to talk about yoga. So I'm not going to get into this too much. What I'm just going to tell you is that you practice this third type of meditation by preventing any kind of thought to come into your mind in the first place. You have to feel like any thought that comes in from the outside and not from the inside. And before it can enter your mind, which is in a state of void, you block it, you leave it out. And by continuously practicing this way, by preventing the thoughts from coming inside your mind, you reach a somewhat semi-permanent state of dissolution or voidness, okay? And when you reach this state of void, you find that your consciousness has expanded. You find that there is a very peculiar kind of vacancy all around you. You feel like people around you are nothing but walking shells, that you yourself are a walking shell, so to speak. It's like you're in something, and this something is not this. This something is very ethereal in nature. The problem with thoughts is that thoughts depend on logic, and logic is always, to some extent, dependent on material quantification, okay? But we are talking about spirit. Spirit is not material in nature. So if you're going to try and understand spirit from a materialistic point of view, you're not really going to get to the truth of things. So you have to take the mind out of the equation, in effect. Unfortunately, a lot of times in the attempt of taking the mind out of the equation, many practitioners have, come on the verge of becoming lunatics, because there is not a lot of difference between being a lunatic and being one of the highest and greatest practitioners of yoga, to be without thoughts. The difference is that in a lunatic, the lunatic is careless. But in a high-level yoga practitioner, the practitioner is careful. Is careful about letting a certain thought in, and is careful about bringing a certain thought out. And at will, they can block any kind of unwanted thoughts from coming into their consciousness. They remain in the state of pure consciousness. The lunatic, on the other hand, is just empty, is without any thoughts. It just can't make sense of what's happening around himself or herself. And that's the big difference between being empty in the yogic way and being empty in a lunatic sort of a way. Now, the whole point of this third kind of meditation is to realize that your pure consciousness, bliss existence, okay? In effect, what I'm trying to bring out in this video is the more traditional and oriental aspect of meditation as compared to the more new agey kind of meditation that some of you people are used to. And it's not all incorrect, the new agey sort of stuff, you know, but you have to understand something, that there could be a lot of dilution in the way that these methods are used. You know, it's not really fortified. They're more like dilutions, filtered, okay? And it probably is not as effective until and unless you at least experience some of the more traditional forms of meditation, okay? You can obviously look up on these forms of meditation that I've talked about. Go up on the internet and do your own research, because what I'm talking about is directly from yogic scriptures, from the Bhagavad Gita, from the Orient, you know. Meditation has come from the East, in effect. And if you're talking about technology and about, you know, Silicon Valley, you're obviously not going to divorce the fact that it came from the West, or, you know, just industries in general. So if you want to really understand the basics, you'd have to go back to the West and not to the East. That's just the way it is. So the third type of meditation, which is what Sri Aurobindo, a famous philosopher and a yogi, tried, which took him to Nadivikalpa samadhi directly, which is what first gave him the first firm binding into yogi consciousness and gave him his first conviction that yoga works. This third fundamental method of meditation is, according to me, the most difficult. If you don't have a foundational development, you know, based off of the previous two methods of meditation, which is to remain in witness consciousness, and which is the ability to understand what is nature and what is not, what is spirit and what is not spirit. It becomes easier to practice the third method of meditation when you have an adequate sense of knowing of who you are in reality. And it's a step-by-step process. The third method of meditation can actually be practiced by a few people who are said to have good karma, you know, who have practiced yoga in their previous lives. So these kind of people make for great tantric yogis. A lot of you people might think that Tantra has got a lot to do with art, which is true. Tantra has got a great deal to do with the arts and with sex. Sacred sex forms maybe about 5 to 10% of Tantra. Okay, Tantra has a lot to do with awakening body consciousness. So over time, people confuse Tantra as just enjoying the body and things of body consciousness. They felt that they could indulge in sense pleasures and detach at will. But that's not the easiest thing to do. In Tantra, a tantric practitioner, an advanced tantric practitioner, has the ability to sit in meditation and just go into this void, ultimate Kali Shiva state of consciousness in one go. Just like that, they sit and they're there. Okay, I don't know if you can do that. I can do this only when I practice a lot of asanas, a lot of breathing, you know, when I really take my prana up to the highest chakra and I really get that kundalini going. Okay, that's just when I can do it, to be honest with you. Tantric practitioners are not your everyday household objects. They're not your everyday sort of people. You know, they're very unconventional. They lead very unconventional lives, and they have certain rituals that they follow which a normal person cannot. So beware and know your limits. Know what you can do. Know what you can inculcate into your life that is practicable, that is practical, and what you cannot. Okay. Tantra, in fact, is probably the last kind of meditation, the last fundamental type of meditation where the practitioner is able to just take breath, pran, which is what gives you life and existence, up to the highest state and just blank out over there. They reach nirvana in an instant, okay? And when you're talking about Tantra, you're basically also touching a bit upon the third fundamental type of meditation. In brief, I've explained to you guys 3 fundamental types of meditation. The first type being in a witness state of consciousness. The second type is where you separate what is spirit and what is not. The third is where you stop thoughts from coming in and you remain in void consciousness. You remain in what's called Nadivikalpa. Nir means not, kalpa, nirvikalpa. Vikalpa means impression, thought impressions, fluctuations, okay? Nir means to against, opposite, not, have, okay, in Sanskrit. It means you do not have fluctuations, nirvikalpa samadhi, okay? So you're an absolute Shiva state of consciousness, in other words, just to make it simple. And the last is probably the tantric type of meditation, where you're going beyond the modes of nature, beyond the properties of nature, beyond your mind and straight into void consciousness through way of intuition, through way of instinct, in this very instinctive way, okay? In this very ritualistic way. So there it is. Apart from, meditating by listening to music, by visualizations, by visualizing on the visualizations on the chakras, by the way, is a tantric method of meditation and should be practiced by under an experienced practitioner, okay? It's also done by utilizing your breath to optimize the functioning of your chakras and to really go deep within them and understand what they are and how they function based upon the effects that they produce. And I have talked about this in detail in my 7-step vortex program, and the link is down below. And you can use your breath as well to practice this tantric way of meditation by going up the chakras. Chakra meditation, listening to music, these all fall under what's called Laya Yoga, Laya, which is the yoga of dissolution. So you've got different types of yoga, okay? I'm going to end this video by talking also in brief about the different kinds of yoga. This video is just meant to be about the 3 most fundamental types of meditation, okay? It's strictly traditional, it's strictly from the Orient, it's from the yogic scriptures. So I will talk about the other new agey type of meditations in my next video. There is Laya Yoga, there is Tantra Yoga, which I've touched upon in brief. There is Jnana Yoga, yoga through knowledge. There is Bhakti Yoga, yoga through devotion, yoga through your emotions, through heightening of emotions. There is Raj Yoga, or the yoga of the royal path, the highest of yoga, the Raj Yoga, which is what Patanjali came up with, the Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 forms of yoga, the 8-limbed yoga. So there are all these kinds of yoga, okay? And then there is Hatha Yoga, which is something that I practice. So Hatha Yoga is a more intense physical form of yoga. It's usually people who are athletes, which I am, sports people or people who are more into the physical aspect of life tend to practice a lot more. It requires a lot of willpower and exertion to practice Hatha Yoga. Somewhere down the line, Hatha Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, Raja Yoga meet at one point where they all lead to that one same goal. So in the next video, I'm going to talk to you guys about this as well. But in this video, these are the 3 most fundamental basic types of meditation. Look up what are the other kinds of meditation based on the terms that I've given to you guys. And all that you can do when it comes to yoga is to research and develop yourself, get all the knowledge you can, dedicate about 1 or 2 hours in a day to meditation, and meditation will give you a great profound sense of being. You will understand who you are in reality. There will no longer be the fear of death. There will the world, in my opinion, would be a better place if people actually meditated daily. Everybody, not just yoga practitioners. So in this video, I've explained to you guys what are the 3 fundamental basic types of meditation. Leave your comments down below. Like this video if you do, of course, and subscribe to this channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye for now.